Is regenerative agriculture an opportunity or a threat for organics?
This is Marla Carlson, President of Organic Connections, speaking at the 2022 Organic Connections Conference. She and others are skeptical of major agri-food corporations that have announced plans to support regenerative agriculture.
At General Mills, we know it's not just what we make, but how we make it.
At Nestle, we want to advance changes in dairy farming to help reduce its impact on the environment.
Agriculture is how we will regenerate our soil safely, responsibly, and sustainably. Learn more at cargill.com/regenag.
Nestle, a company with enough controversies to have a dedicated Wikipedia article, has pledged to source 50% of its ingredients by 2030 from farmers adopting regenerative practices. Without an established definition of regenerative agriculture, many are concerned that large corporations will water down the narrative until regenerative is the new natural. Regenerative Organic Certified, Regenified, Soil and Climate Initiative, and Integrity Grown have been established to hold regenerative agriculture to a rigorous standard. Who should farmers certify with, and is it worthwhile to be certified? Each of these certifications are, to varying degrees, outcome-based. Farmers must demonstrate soil health improvement to be certified. This contrasts the U.S.A. National Organic Program. To be certified organic, a farmer must not apply restricted substances to their field. It's a negative process defined by what a farmer has not done. There's an expectation that organic methods build soil and produce crops that are free of toxins. However, this is not always the case.
We're finding pesticide residues in soils that have been organically certified for a decade or longer, a decade and a half. So some of these pesticides are known that they can build up and they can be present in a soil system for a much longer period after they've been applied than the 3-year transition period. And this is again a reflection of soils who perhaps do not have robust enough microbial populations to bioremediate and to take those pesticides out of the system.
While many certified organic growers are building soil and increasing biodiversity, organic certification does not guarantee this. With the 2017 NOP decision to allow hydroponics to be certified organic produce may not even have been grown in soil. According to a 2021 New Yorker article, domestic sales of organic food is now around $60 billion, and the industry is defined as much by large industrial dairy farms and by frozen organic lasagna, as it is by the environmentalism and the irregularly shaped vegetables of the organic movement's pioneers. By using quantitative methods to measure soil health, biodiversity, ecosystem function, nutrient density, and the presence of toxins, regenerative certifications seek to guarantee that their products benefit human and environmental health. However, different certifications use different measurements. The certifications listed previously have far more in common than not. While those working to popularize regenerative agriculture are hesitant to criticize their peers, their differences reveal disagreement on how regenerative should be defined.
Some contend that glyphosate is such a noxious toxin that it should not be applied to any of our food production soils at any point in time. And others believe that the negative impact of tillage exceeds the negative impact of glyphosate.
Regenerative Organic Certified was established in 2017 by the Regenerative Organic Alliance in response to the NOP decision to allow hydroponics and factory farm-style practices in animal agriculture.
The founders of the ROA are Patagonia, Dr. Bronner's, and the Rodeo Institute. And these are all really iconic brands and organizations who had been working in organic for many years and supporting organic, but felt like they wanted to uplift organic by adding further criteria that would address some of the concerns that they had about a weakening of the organic program, such as the allowance of hydroponics and a lack of animal welfare provisions for commercial livestock operations, and the fact that the National Organic Program doesn't touch labor, and they really wanted to see something that included a more holistic approach to the farm.
Regenerative Organic Certified is the oldest certification of the 4 listed, and the group stakes a light historical claim on the word regenerative.
Bob Rodale is credited with coming up with this term gosh, it was back in the 80s.
I prefer the idea of a regenerative agriculture.
We start with organic as our baseline, and we layer in other criteria looking at soil health and land management. We look at animal welfare, if it's a commercial livestock operation, and then we also look at the labor practices. So looking at social fairness for the farmers and the farm workers. There's one other thing that's pretty unique in our program. We have a buyer's criteria. So any brands that are buying regenerative organic certified crops from farmers have additional measures of transparency and allow us to do desk audits to ensure they're paying a premium to the farmers. And whenever possible, they have long-term contracts and support capacity building at the farm level. As farms enter in at bronze level, they progress and add in more and more practices as they move along the trajectory towards that North Star of gold. For example, if you look at our crop section, the soil section, you can look at the criteria around crop rotations. And so at bronze level, you have to have 3 rotations. So 2 intervening crop rotations before you go back to the same cash crop. And at silver, it goes to 4, and at gold, it's 5. For keeping the ground covered, vegetative cover on the ground, there's a certain percentage allotted for each of those tiers. So as you move up, as you get to gold, it's 100% of your land is kept maintained with either living roots in the ground or vegetative cover, dried mulch on the ground, keeping the soil protected.
Because the standard is more practice than outcome-based, organic farmers will be familiar with the format. However, ROC still looks at outcomes.
We do require soil testing. For example, every 3 years, the first year we require it to establish the baseline. And the whole idea is to look over time as more and more regenerative practices are put into place that the health of the soil will improve.
To be Regenerative Organic Certified, a farm must also be certified organic. According to the organization's website, it is possible to obtain your organic and/or social certification in tandem with Regenerative Organic Certified if the tandem certifications are overseen by the same certifying body.
We are a tiny percentage of agriculture, and we need to be the big percentage of agriculture. So I would say that let's not fight, let's all work together. We align our indicators up with other programs doing similar work like SCI.
SCI, the Soil and Climate Initiative, is an ecosystem of services to support the soil health and regenerative transition at scale. And we have options for verification to our farm standard, which includes both a practice-based and an outcome-based component.
To be certified by SCI, farmers must create a plan to address the group's 7 pillars: minimize soil disturbance, keep living roots in the ground year-round, keep year-round soil coverage, maximize diversity above and below ground, reduce synthetic inputs, continuous learning, and the appropriate integration of livestock. Test results determine what verification level a farm is at, and a farmer must progress to the next verification level within 3 years to remain in the program.
We are a true third-party verified program. As the Soil and Climate Initiative, we're focused on bringing farmers into the program, assisting them with putting together their farm transition plans and establishing their monitoring. We don't actually do the verification ourselves. There's an outside third-party verifier, SCS Global Services, which is a leading provider in this world, who actually does the verification. So it's very important for the integrity of these claims in the market that there's a level of separation between us as the folks who are running the program and the people who are actually doing the verification.
SCI provides funds directly to farmers to help cover the cost of transitioning.
We have what we call the acre dividend, and the acre dividend is essentially a fund that is paid into by brands and other folks along the supply chain who want to make claims using our standard, and that those funds then go to the farmers to actually help support practice change on the ground. Right now, for farms that enroll in our program that are associated with a brand that's making claims, that typically amounts to about $20 per acre. And we've expended over $500,000 to farmers across North America to help support their regenerative work on the ground. We're constantly monitoring how the other standards are evolving, and in certain circumstances, we'll actually recommend that a grower might consider a different program that we think is better suited for them. For example, in the past, we have recommended and asked organic certified growers if they've considered the regenerative organic certification. And we're always interested in finding ways that we can collaborate and work across the standards and ensure that from a grower perspective, this is as supportive and straightforward a process as possible, while also adhering to third-party verification and rigorous and exacting standards.
Regenified was founded in 2022 by Gabe Brown, Dr. Alan Williams, and Doug Peterson.
We were really started by two of the pioneers and long-term advocates of regenerative agriculture, Alan Williams and Gabe Brown. So they've been in this for a long time.
While the organization is relatively new, the popularity of its founders has helped garner media attention. In a 2023 Forbes article, Eric Kobayashi-Solomon writes, Regenified closes the standards gap by providing clear guidelines regarding what constitutes regenerative practices for farms and ranches. Regenified is both a practice and outcome-based certification. This means that farmers must adhere to rules laid out in the standard while demonstrating soil health improvement annually.
The outcomes are going to come in the future. So initially, what you have to evaluate are the practices that an operation is using. Are they using no-till? Are they using cover crops? Are they using adaptive grazing? How diverse is their operation from a plant standpoint? So early on, we knew it was critical to evaluate those practices that they're using and how they relate to the principles of soil health. But then ultimately, those practices need to have an impact on the outcomes. And so we also knew that in the long term, we needed to measure the outcomes. Is carbon sequestration improving? Is organic matter improving? Is soil biology changing over time with their change in management? Is infiltration into the soil getting better over time? Is plant diversity increasing over time? Is wildlife habitat improving over time?
Regenified uses a 5-tier ranking system. Farmers can begin using the Regenified seal once they reach Tier 2. To remain in the program, farmers must progress to the next tier within 3 years. Farmers are scored based on their practices, lab tests, and in-field tests. For example, farms receive a score between 0 and 100 based on the level of tillage performed. 1 annual tillage pass gets a score of 25, and 0 tillage passes gets a score of 100. To advance to the next tier, farmers must reduce their tillage frequency while increasing soil test scores. The same is true of fertilizer and pesticide applications, among other practices.
Too many times we had seen producers that knew that herbicides and pesticides, they had to get away from them, but their only opportunity they felt was organic, and essentially that means just total exclusion of any type of synthetic pesticide and herbicide, and many of them that scared them, I guess. So they just kind of threw up their hands and said, well, I can't get to 0, so there's no use in doing anything. And we felt that there had to be an opportunity to walk them down this path of reducing those chemicals, reducing those synthetic pesticides over time. And there needed to be a way to incentivize them to do that. And so that's where we developed our tier structure, 5 different tiers that allows limited chemical use, but requires to go from one tier to the next, requires a reduction in the use of those pesticides over time. Our goal is to really incentivize all kinds of products, all kinds of supply chains around the globe to at least head down this regenerative path.
Founded by Advancing Eco-Agriculture, Integrity Grown is seeking to guarantee harvest quality and ecosystem improvement.
There are many different aspects of quality of a crop that we care about and quality of outcomes. When we think about nutritional quality, there are some of the basic fundamentals, such as looking at protein content, looking at oil content, test weight, etc. And then we can step that up another level, but start looking at nutritional balance in terms of mineral balance. What does the mineral profile look like? And ultimately, in the long term, the vision is to get to a point where we are also measuring phytonutrients and measuring phytonutrient integrity as an expression of does this plant have a robust immune system, and does it have the ability to transfer those positive health outcomes to people that we are really looking for, to people and livestock. Another key aspect of quality in the world that we live in today is the absence of toxins. Let's simply measure the levels of glyphosate and its metabolites in the food that is being harvested. And all of a sudden, that changes the conversation to where now, if you make the choice to use glyphosate in your management system, that requires that you also need to have robust enough biological activity to remediate glyphosate and prevent it from showing up in the food supply. And that's what we really care about.
Announced early this year, Integrity Grown is only available to cotton growers in the U.S. and Turkey. However, they expect a full rollout by 2025. Integrity Grown rates farms as gold, silver, or bronze based on harvest outcome and soil health measurements. Practices such as tillage, herbicide applications, and synthetic fertilizer use are considered on a spectrum. Harvest quality and ecosystem improvement are prioritized. For example, if a farmer uses tillage while still demonstrating superior crop quality and ecosystem improvement, the farmer would not be docked points for tilling.
There are a number of practices that are considered within this very strong polarity in the regenerative agriculture worldview that is becoming popular, and that they are black and white. And tillage is one example of these, and the incorporation of livestock and the use of cover crops. We focus on outcomes. And in the short term, as we are developing data on outcomes, it is necessary for us to pay attention to practices as well. So practices are a part of the verification, but not its totality. And one of the practices that we're looking at is tillage and also glyphosate and the use of fertilizers which have damaging impacts to the soil. And instead of making them a complete black and white in or out distinction, we're considering them on a spectrum. What is the degree and what is the context within which they're being applied? So we have to consider the context for some of these practices that are commonly viewed as being black and white, where we have to look at them on a spectrum rather than just an in or out perspective.
Farmers choose to certify for various reasons. For some, it's a personal decision. They are passionate about what they do and want to recognize the high standard they hold their work to.
By going certified Regenified, it would give us a platform by which we could share an approach we believe really works. Whereas I don't think the certificate in and of itself is going to be a big persuader. I think if companies that have the certificate begin to prove it through nutrient density testing, that could be a persuader.
One of the main reasons we wanted to get certified was just to distinguish ourselves. We've been certified organic for quite a while, but then we were really moving towards the regenerative path. And we wanted to be able to show what we were doing.
Most consumers are not going to shelf saying, I'm looking for your regenerative products. Where are all of your regenerative products on shelf? Consumers are currently, I would argue, maybe 5% of the population. We may be closer to 2.5% of the population who's actually at that level and saying, I know I'm looking for this. But a much larger percent of the population is going to the shelf and saying, look, I want to buy from companies who are having positive climate impact changes, who are doing things that are going to solve climate issues. I'm going to the shelf and I want to buy from companies who have the highest quality ingredients because I want to feed my family the healthiest food.
There is no consumer demand for tomatoes that resemble cardboard and for strawberries that are still white or green in the center. and for cantaloupe that are rock hard. There is no consumer demand for fruit of those qualities. So the reason the fruits and vegetables of that quality exist as the primary option is not for the benefit of consumers, but for the benefit of the supply chain. Where are the leverage points to drive significant change, not incremental 1% or 5% or 7% change, but when we want to drive significant change that is 40 to 60% or more of the entire supply chain landscape, the ability to pull those levers and to facilitate that change does not reside with consumers today. It resides with the supply chain managers who have the ability to make a different choice. And I think one of the pieces that isn't well understood is that quality can facilitate storability and transport the same way as, or even better perhaps, than harvesting at a slightly immature stage. There's this piece that isn't widely understood. When very healthy fruit does not decompose, it dehydrates. So we've all experienced having oranges on our shelf where you get one bag of citrus and they can sit there for months and they just dehydrate. And the next batch gets this gray fuzz mold and it completely decomposes and rots within a matter of weeks. Those are two very different outcomes that are a reflection of quality, of nutritional quality. And you can have that same outcome variation occur with strawberries or with tomatoes or with any other fruit or vegetable crop. So very healthy fruits and vegetables do not decompose, they do not rot, they simply dehydrate, which means that you can facilitate extended periods of storability and transport. And most buyers are unaware that this option exists because they've never seen it on scale. They might have observed it from a few farms here and there, but they haven't seen it on scale. And this is the new model that it's so easy to achieve on the production side, on the farming side of producing these higher quality crops, that when we can demonstrate to the supply chain managers what the possibilities and the options are, this can be readily adopted at scale across the entire supply chain. And who wouldn't want that? Because not only does it improve storability and shelf life and reduce loss in the refrigerator and so forth, but it tastes so much better. You could actually have a tomato that tastes like it came out of your garden, or a strawberry that tastes like it came out of your garden, and can be shipped and transported for weeks. That's the opportunity that exists for us to create a supply chain based on quality rather than based on harvest immaturity.